What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Boozer here. Thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to be going over the fusion schedule here, and we'll try to do our best to give everyone the best chance to get this fusion. Now, first I want to say that this fusion is going to be a traditional fusion. We can already see that right now. We have to collect the rare champions and then fuse them into the epic champions, and then fuse the epic champions into the fusion here, Granyt. Now, whether this champion is worth it or not for your account, it's going to be up to you guys to decide. Grant seems like a pretty good debuffer, but he's basically being advertised as a damage dealer, but he doesn't deal enough damage, in my opinion, to be super worthwhile. But his debuff and buff capabilities definitely make him worthwhile to be used in lots of areas as well. And I think he's going to help a lot of players if you randomly pick him up or pull him from a shard or something like that. In any case, let's take a look at this event. So it's going to be a 2-week long event. We're going to start off here with Gear Hunters. I guess they rebranded Dungeon Divers into Gear Hunters. All right, so this new Dungeon Diver called Gear Hunters. It's basically the same. It's just been renamed. Still 3,700 points. We see it in game right now. And we're going to open up the fusion with the new Dungeon Divers with the Fire Knight. There's no other event active. This is okay. I mean, you can kind of use your daily energy to do Fire Knight and then put it into the Dungeon Diver. That's no big deal. And then over CVC, which is happening right now, so Tuesday to Thursday, there's actually not too much going on in terms of the fusion, just a gear enhancement event. Now, this means that you're probably going to be putting in 5,500 energy to finish this off if you're doing hard 10, so 5,500 energy. You can put that all into the Fire Knight. Fire Knight is probably going to cost you the standard 2,200 to 2,500 energy. So you're going to have to find 3,000 extra energy and put it into another dungeon. Maybe you could put it into the event dungeon if you want. I'm surprised there's no event dungeon event that's happening as well during CBC. Just check the calendar. There's actually nothing. But yeah, overall, this is a little bit of a bad thing because we're basically just floating roughly 3,000 energy to do kind of whatever. You don't really want to do that, right, for a fusion. So this is already very inefficient. You're spending 3,000 energy on a non-event, or you're not getting any event or not getting any fusion progress for your extra 3,000 energy roughly. So that's kind of a bad thing already. You need 20 million or so to do this each artifact enhancement event. So you got 1, 2, and where's the third one? Yep, it's usually the third one. So about 60 million silver over 2 weeks. And then we're going to lead into the weekend with a champion training with Dragon, which is pretty good. Dragon, again, about 22 to 2,500 energy to complete. Training is going to really depend on how much you have prepared. Chickens, brews, and all that. But it's a good thing to have the training coming along with the summon rush, meaning that you can basically pull shards and train them up at the same time, so that's not bad. Also, training with dragons actually not bad as well, because you can, there's multiple champions where you can throw into the dragon tournament where you can farm food at the same time. For example, even Michelangelo can do it. You just need to put him in a toxic set and then just do lower levels, like for example, like 20 or 16 or something, and then you can just throw 4 food with him. He can get it done. Arena, these are pretty standard. And then the gear hunters here as well, similar, right? It's going to be 5,500, or if you're doing hard 10, it's probably closer to 5,000 if you're doing 20, stage 20, I mean. But the problem here is that you have a little bit of a lull right here, this lull period. So between Thursday and I guess Saturday, you really don't want to be using any kind of extra energy during this time. Probably just doing your daily energies and just putting it into dragon or training, and then saving whatever you have banked up for the last day of the dragon tournament, so that you can actually get some points for all your dungeon diving or gear hunting, right? But right now this is not, it's not an ideal schedule, I would say, because you're floating a lot of energy along with that it isn't going into events. So it's going into dragon, but it's not going into gear hunter, like for example. And then the next event here is the ice golem. Again, there's a bit of a period of time where, there's a period of time where there's nothing, because, sorry, right here. So there's one period of time. So there's one day here where the dragon tournament ends, and then ice golem hasn't started yet, and the dungeon diver or gear hunter is still active. And you're just kind of floating energy. So you're putting the energy into some random dungeon just to get dungeon diving points. Ideally, that's not very good. So I can see this happening where the dragon tournament starts. You start putting energy into the dragon tournament. It's almost finished. The dragon tournament is almost finished, and then the dungeon divers opens. And then, yeah, you're not going to have enough energy to put into the Dungeon Diver. And then the Dragon Tournament ends. And then it's going to be a day where, again, you're just putting energy in the Dungeon Diver without any kind of double dip event. And then the Ice Golem opens. And then you put the energy into the Ice Golem and then get some points for the Dungeon Diver. But I think this second Dungeon Diver here is very, it's very awkward. This is very awkward because the Dragon Tournament would have started, and then you would have put energy into the Dragon Tournament, and then the second Dungeon Diver hasn't started yet, so you're not getting any points. And then once the Dragon Tournament ends, there's a day where you're not getting any points for another Dungeon Tournament until the Ice Golem opens. So I feel these three events are connected in a very, very inefficient way, and it's going to be a little bit expensive for the energy. So I would expect to use gems or inbox energy at this stage. So hopefully, we have a personal reward CBC. Hopefully you win the personal rewards, and then I guess you can use that to kind of bridge the gap a little bit. But yeah, this middle part is very, very inefficient in terms of energy spend. I mean, we already start the fusion with a very inefficient energy spend here with the Fire Knight and the first Dungeon Diver or the Gear Hunter. And then as we lead into the last Gear Hunter, it's same story, right? So there's going to be a 1-day lull where you're putting points into Ice Golem and it's not going into the Gear Hunters event. So the third one opens with a 1-day lull. And again, this is just inefficient use of energy. So you just be burning energy for points in Ice Golem, but you're not getting points for Dungeon Diving. So that's definitely not something very good to have for Fusion. And then Spider opens with the champion training. This is kind of okay. There's champions that can solo farm Spider, so you get some food out of that. Along with the champion chase, training with chase is always a good thing. And yeah, so then we have the second classic arena. That's pretty standard. Now let's point out some key things here. So first we have a epic available. So we have the epic available. I'll move my head. So that is the epic Hilda. We did a quick preview on her. She doesn't look too crazy or anything, so I don't even know if I would go out of my way to pick her up, to be honest. But we do have a epic available in the first summon rush. Now usually what happens is that the summon rush will offer the rare. This is a void rare, by the way, so you can't actually pull it from mystery shards. Clarium doing us dirty. You can only pull it from void shards. So there's no like escape or backup plan if you miss one of these rares. But you're gonna get one of the rares. It's gonna cost you probably about 3,000. Probably gonna cost you about 3,000 points for the rare. And then the epic Hilda is probably gonna cost you somewhere around 6,000. Maybe it'll be cheaper. Maybe it'll be like 5,500. But that's for the first summon rush. So you're paying about 5 or 6 sacred shards for the rare. And if you can double that, you can get the epic. And if you can get the epic, that means you can skip 3 extra events. All right, so 3 extra events could be pretty worthwhile in this fusion because it's kind of a train wreck in terms of energy efficiency. And you can also skip the champion chase. So that's usually what people do, is that they get the epic from the summon rush and then they start skipping a bunch of big energy spend events, and then they start skipping the next pull event. I mean, this isn't a cheap price, right? You're paying 6 sacreds roughly for the rare, and then you're paying roughly 12 sacreds for the epic. Now, the extra 6 sacreds or so that you'll probably spend for the epic, is that worth skipping 3 events, right? So I assume that you would probably want to skip the champion chase, right? And then I think if that were you guys, I would probably just skip both of the Gear Hunter events. And that would probably save you a couple thousand energy. So is that extra, 5 or 6 potential sacred shards worth the points? Worth it to skip the champion chase plus, plus save a couple thousand energy. That's basically what it comes down to if you have the resources. If you don't have the resources, then of course you're just going to get the rare, and then you're just going to accumulate 1 week's worth of resources and then jump into the champion chase. Now, the argument for the champion chase or going for it is that we can save the epics or save the rares that we have accumulated throughout the entire fusion and then fuse the epics during the champion chase. Since the champion chase is at the end of the fusion, that means we have access to basically all the epics, which means that, well, we have access to 3 of the epics that we can get for points anyways towards the champion chase. So that's going to be 750 points. So that's going to alleviate some of the point pressure. Keep in mind that during this weekend, it's probably going to be 2x sacred event. So it's not going to be great for champion chase. It's not a great setup for champion chase. Sacred shards are worth roughly about 270 points on average for champion chase. So you guys can do the math there. If you guys need, if you guys save the 3 epics and the champion chase costs you about 3,000 points, you're going to need about 2,200 points, which means if you're strictly talking sacred shards, it's more expensive to use sacred shards during a champion chase than it is to get this epic. All right, so if you guys are planning to use sacred shards, it's more wise to use the sacred shards towards the epic and then full skip the champion chase than it is to use sacred shards during this champion chase. All right, guys. And then, of course, the biggest question is whether using resources for this champion is actually worth it, because we know that there's probably going to be some guarantee events coming in October, so that's just something to be prepared for. For me personally, I'm going to go for every single fusion. So, I'm going to do my best to make this happen. But what I'm seeing right now is that I'm probably going to go for the rare and to just do this event or do this fusion as cheaply as possible with as little shard spend as possible. And in order to spend the least amount of shards, you're probably just going to get the rare, and then you're probably just going to set up some mystery shard pulls for the champion chase. But what I think is going to bother a bunch of people is the really inefficient energy spend throughout the entire fusion. So basically every single dungeon diver or gear hunters has noticeable gaps in it, and there's going to be noticeable days where you're not really efficiently spending your energy towards double dipping opportunities, like basically while a tournament and the gear hunter is open. There's a lot of gaps in this fusion, which means that we're probably going to be spending more energy than we want. Hopefully Plarium cuts us a break on the summon and champion chase requirements and makes it a little bit cheaper, but we'll see. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for the fusion schedule here. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Are you guys planning on going for Granyt here? If you guys see anything that I missed, let me know in the comments below. Appreciate your time as always. Hopefully you guys have a great start to the week, and I'll see you guys in the next video.